to the March 23rd, 2021 Finance Committee meeting. In accordance with an act to implement provisions necessary to the health, welfare, and safety of the citizens of Maine in response to the COVID-19 public health emergency, as enacted to read Section D11 MRSA, Section 403-A, public proceedings through remote access during a declaration of a state of emergency to COVID-19 and for 30 days following the termination of that state of emergency. The Finance Committee meeting will be held through Google Meet. The meeting will be live streamed and available for viewing at www.msad11.org. Calling the meeting to order. Pat, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Becky Fless,
Yay.
Nicole Medor,
Yay.
Alyssa Tracy has contacted us to let us know that she's going to be late. Jim Lothridge,
Yay.
Patrick Saucier,
Yay.
and Cullen McGuff.
Yay.
Okay, Becky, that's roll.
Great. Discussion. First is the 21-22 budget discussion.
Okay.
ESSER 3 update.
All right, so we have a lot to cover this evening, actually. We sent out this afternoon, I sent out this afternoon a lot of backup documents that we will be walking you through and sharing. Those documents are also available on the district website for anyone who wishes to access them from there. So what I'd like to do is start by presenting one of my documents. Okay, so the first document that I'm sharing, I'm just going to start with highlighting the top section. The last time that the Finance Committee met, back on February 20th, the requested budget was at a 7.95% increase over the previous year, which represented a $2,075,695. That increase to the budget represented a 20.51% increase to taxpayers, which was also over $2 million. The budget that we're going to discuss tonight, that we're going to present, has the budget presently at $1 million increase, or $1,999,000, which is a 4.20% increase, and an increase to taxpayers at $1,069,000, which is 10.72%. So the budget that you're looking at tonight is a decrease of a bit over $976,000 that we've cut, which represents a 3.75% decrease. And the impact to taxpayers has also decreased by about $976,000, and that represents a 9.79% decrease. So I just wanted you to see the big picture about where we are in this moment of time. I'm going to ask Andrea to take over so that she can show to you the updated worksheet and the updated expenditure sheet so you can see where we are today. Then she's going to shift it back to me, and I can talk to you about what we've reduced, where it's been reduced, what increases we've made, and where I really see us going over the next few weeks. So I'm going to stop presenting and ask Andrea if you would present the expenditures article and the worksheet, please. Andrea, are you talking? Speaking? Can't hear you.
Sorry.
Mute. Okay, so the 11 expenditure articles, they're presented in this manner because the state requires communities to vote on the budget by these expenditure articles. So I'm going to review what's contained in each of the expenditure articles and the percentage of increase or decrease. So the first expenditure article is regular instruction, regular classroom instruction. That is an overall increase of 3.21% or 364,000, give or take. Expenditure article number 2 is special education. All of our special education teachers and staff, we're seeing an 11.15% increase, or almost $500,000, 452,000. CTE instruction is the tuition we pay to CATC. And while we don't pay any tuition to CATC for this year, it has not been ruled out for years to come.
And Andrea, CATC is Capital Area Technical School in Augusta.
Other instruction basically includes extracurricular and co-curricular activities. So band and athletics and things that are contained that are part of instruction, but not part of the instructional day. Actually, athletics and co-curricular are considered instructional activities. There's a decrease of approximately $13,000 or 1.79%. The next article is student and staff support, which contains a lot of different departments. It contains technology and curriculum, guidance and library, as well as nurses. And that's all I can think of off the top of my head. In that department, we're seeing a 0.21% increase, or approximately $5,000. System administration contains the superintendent's office, as well as the board of directors. It includes things like your property and casualty insurance, your liability insurance, rather. It includes all the functions of the business office, as well as the functions of the board and the superintendent's office. That expenditure article is seeing a 3.37% increase, or $25,000. School administration. School administration is the function of the office of the principal. It includes the principal, the assistant principals, and the administrative assistants, and everything that it takes for those offices to run. That is an increase of 5.17%, or approximately $78,000. Transportation includes transportation to and from school, as well as homeless transportation, transportation to special ed, and transportation for out-of-district students. That's one and the same, sorry. That is seeing an overall increase of 3.46%, or approximately $62,000. Facilities maintenance is just as listed. It's for the care and upkeep of all of our facilities. There's an increase of approximately 4%, or $123,000. Debt service, if we owed amounts for any of our school buildings, this is where you would see that amount. Currently, all of our district's buildings are paid for, so there's no debt service. Other commitments. Other commitments is basically our school nutrition program. It is not self-funding, and there are monies in the budget to help support the school lunch program. So that is seeing an increase of approximately 0.74%, or about $1,900. So we see an overall increase of 4.2%, or $1.1 million. If we look at this in the, let's see if I can find my, do you see the requested worksheet?
It was there for a second,
Okay,
and then it disappeared.
let's see if I can. Okay. So this in the corner is where we compare this year's budget to last year's budget. You'll see the 4.2% increase of approximately $1.1 million. You will see the state allocation of 14.5 million. And the overall increase to taxpayers presented as this budget is 1.069 or 10.72%.
So what makes up most of the increases to this proposed budget has to do with health insurance, currently at 3% projected increase, and negotiated salary increases. Correct, Andrea?
I would say that's a large amount, as well as other facilities, as well as in special ed.
Yeah, and certainly we can have Alicia once we get there. You know, you guys, if you want to ask more questions about special ed, a lot of it has to do with out of district placements and some additional out of district placements that we are anticipating. But questions for Andrea on the information she just presented? Colin.
Yeah, Andrea, thank you very much for presenting that. Sorry, this is my first year with the school budget, so it's hard to know what's normal and what's not.
Sure.
Do you anywhere have multi-year trend data for, say, total cost per student served, or multi-year trend for expenditure articles? That would at least give us a sense of, like, is this the unusual bump because of COVID? Is this tracking proportionately to the size of the district, or are we?
It's not for COVID. So the way that our budget is built, Cullen, is that I go in and I put all of the staff members with the required contracted increases. And then what happens is each of the building administrators build, or the program, the program administrators builds their budget from the ground up. So for example, other than staff, Terry builds the technology budget, and each of the building administrators builds the budget at their own school. So it's not done as a whole, but by individuals, and then looked at as a whole by the administrative team.
But your second question, or another part of your question, Colin, was, do we keep track of the increases from year to year? We have not necessarily kept track of them by expenditure article, but Andrea does keep, I think it's 20 years worth of history that she has on a page that she will present to the school board. We don't have it for tonight, but she does keep track of that so that we can see the actual impact to taxpayers. We can see the overall increase or decrease. Some years there are decreases to our budget. We do maintain that level of information, and we make that available for the public and for the board.
In addition, Colin, the state tracks per pupil expenditures for all of the districts, all of the state schools. What I will say is that MSAD11 is in the, I would say, the bottom 10th percentile.
15%, I'd say.
Sorry. Of all the schools in the district. We are below the state average, and they track that based on expenditures as reported and uploaded by the business office. So they do this from year to year. And if that's something that you'd like, I'd be happy to share.
I'll look through what's on the board portal site already. I don't want to bother you with more work if it's already there. I'll take my time and work back.
Okay.
And there is more detail, Colin, there. Andrea tries to put as much information as is reasonable. She puts on the website, so anyone from the public can take a look and see exactly what it is that we're budgeting for. Okay.
Thank you.
Tony.
Yeah. Hey, just a quick question. Andrea, thanks so much for your time and expertise on this. I really appreciate you walking us through this. I just want to double check on the state share. I know that we've talked about that percent hovers around 55% of what I'm trying to think what the name of that number is, but is that 14 million that percent or?
So when we talked about the ED 279, the state creates what they think that we should be able to run our budget on based on the number of students. So based on that amount, the state is currently paying approximately, I would say 62%, give or take a percent. However, it takes us, because we have multiple elementary schools, it takes more to run the district than the state calculates. So I would say it's less than that, or I know it's less than that, the state percentage.
All right.
Does that help you, Tony?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the frame.
Okay, great. Tony, can you remove your hand? Awesome. Teresa?
Hi, Andrea. Just wondering what the state actually allocates per student per year?
So when we looked at the ED 279, the state calculates a tuition rate for elementary and secondary based on the number of students in the district. So in addition to that, it throws in dollars for disadvantage. It throws in money for lots of other things. So it's not a straight flat fee for everyone. So ours is calculated on the ED 279, and it was shared at the last finance meeting. And if it's something that you don't have, I would be happy to provide.
And we live stream that. So for board members who weren't able to attend that meeting, if you were able to actually if you were able to watch that live stream, Andrea walked us line by line by line through the ED 279, and you might find that helpful. So
Great, thank you.
you're welcome. Okay, Matt?
Hey, Andrew, you did a great job. Forgive me, and you may have already provided this, but for me, you're a lot smarter than I am when it comes to numbers and such. So I really think it would be helpful, and you may already have a document that and I just haven't seen it, but that lists everything that we are absolutely required to pay down to the cent, right? I mean, obviously we have insurance, and we know what I think we know what that's going to be. We have salaries, I think we know what that's going to be. You know, we have some other things that we're guessing on, but everything that we absolutely have to pay and how that impacts the budget compared to last year, and then all the other stuff that the nice to haves, right? All the things that we want to add this year. So breaking it out that way for me would be, for my brain, very helpful, because there is a bottom line, right? There's a bottom line, and the have to haves, you know, the requirements might increase the budget over last year alone. It would be nice to kind of look at it through that lens, if you know what I mean. And you may already have something that provides that. Just point me in the right direction.
So typically we do a status quo budget, but we didn't do one this year because of everything going on with CRF. So status quo is something like you requested, but not quite. So what it does is it takes our current obligations and it advances it for the next fiscal year. So all of the amounts that we are required to pay by teacher's contract, what we estimate health insurance to be, all of our requirements as far as our contracts and our lease payments. What it doesn't do is just throw everything else out. What it does is it keeps all of the other expenses at a status quo before we start adding the new expenses on. And because of lack of time this year, we just moved ahead with the requested budget.
Oh, come on, you can't be that busy. Thank you.
I'll see what I can do for you, Matt, if it's something that you think will help you.
No, it's okay. I don't want to be
Okay.
I don't want to be the special case, so that's fine. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jim? Jim, you're muted.
Muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. From what I'm seeing, we're having about a 10% increase. how much of that is coming from contracts that have been renewed recently and that sort of thing? And how much of it is coming from other areas? Can you give me an idea?
So when we first presented the budget to the district, we went through expenditure article by expenditure article to show you what the increase was to each expenditure article. I haven't kept that up since the first meeting, but I will happily go and update it so that you can see where the increases are coming from in each expenditure article.
I would find that helpful if it
Sure.
isn't. I don't want to bury you in paperwork, so.
It's okay.
I
I've
know
already
you're buried
started it.
already, so,
I don't mind updating it.
okay, that would be great. I'd appreciate
Okay.
that. Thank you.
You're welcome, Jim.
Okay, all right, Cullen, and then if we can, I'll move on, because we have a lot more to cover. And it may answer some of the questions that you have. Cullen?
Yeah, this is just maybe a comment more than a question. I'm just noticing from the handout you attached with the enrollment, you know, if the district is expecting another increase of about 100 kids for next year, that's about 5% increase in the population being served anyway. So I appreciate the subtlety that not every child tracks with the same expense ratio or comes with the same state dollars, but it's helpful for me at least to think there's a minimum of a 5% floor just to accommodate next year at the same level we're doing this year. Is that reasonably accurate, or am I?
I appreciate your lens on that. In a normal year, I would agree with your statement. However, once we get to the enrollment and we actually look at the projection, you will see that the majority of that 5% is directly correlated with the number of families who chose to homeschool their children this year. So should those children plan to return next year, we need to make sure that we have the staffing levels, of course, necessary. And I would say this year we did not cut staffing levels to reflect a decrease in, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Let me start over. This year we did not decrease the number of staffing levels to reflect the decrease in homeschooling. Because of the situation going on, we needed those smaller class sizes. So I really feel like the increase next year, should it happen, and the number of families who chose to homeschool, if they choose to send their children back to school next year, we will be able to absorb them into our classes. And I've taken that into consideration in building this budget. Okay.
Thank you. That helps.
You're welcome. All right. I'm going to once again pull up my other document. Okay. So Andrea has already reviewed the detail behind the requested budget. I then want to talk a little bit more about how we got from February's board finance meeting to tonight's meeting. And so I have down here on this sheet some reductions that were made, and they're not to the penny. Okay, I'm just giving you a rough sense. So Andrea and I met with the special ed department, and we looked at tuition for special purpose private schools or out of district. And we decided that we could cut $370,000 there. Now, our ability to cut $370,000 is dependent upon our ability to expand the STEPS program over at Helen Thompson. Keeping in mind the STEPS program is our autistic program, which currently serves students in K through 2 that's located over at LER. We'll have to expand that to make it K through 5 and move it to Helen Thompson, where there's some additional space. But by expanding that program, we felt that we could reduce the special education tuition line, that we could meet the needs of the students in-house, thus saving us $370,000. There's also seed money that we have to budget. Andrea had explained that last time with the seed money. And that we felt was over budgeted, that we could cut $230,000 from there. Andrea learned this year through the auditor that we should not be paying for the board's liability insurance the year before that liability insurance is due. So usually at the end of the school year, she pays the liability insurance for the following school year. And he's asking us not to do that. So we have that money this year. So what we've done is we pulled out approximately $100,000 from the budget for middle school and the Pittston Randolph Consolidated School for their roofs. And so we feel that we can use that money this year to cover the cost. So we pulled it from next year's budget. We have the cafeteria floor at the high school. It is an asbestos floor. It is beginning to fall apart. It needs to be abated and replaced. We are presently hoping and anticipating that we should be able to cover the Hoke Field lease, that lease purchase, out of carry forward. And if we're able to do that, then the payment that we have in the budget of roughly $55,000 could cover the cafeteria floor at the high school so that that work could still be done. If it can't be done, it's okay if it waits another year, if we absolutely can't do it, but we're hoping right now that we will still be able to get it done. We had in the budget around the new practice field at the high school, a fence, but we feel like that should really be part of the Hoke Field project. So we've pulled that and we're shifting it over to the Hoke Field project. We have removed the Riverview gym floor. For those of you who've been on finance, we keep hearing about the gym floors in our elementary schools and they need to be replaced. And we just have not had a year yet where we feel like we can afford to replace one of those gym floors. So we're just kicking it down the road a little bit longer. It's not in such bad shape that we can't continue to use it. I mean, there are some bubbles in it. It should be replaced at some point, but we feel like we can wait another year. The paving at the high school, we had $10,000 in there, but we have it in anticipation of the pavement being damaged due to the heavy equipment for Hoke Field that's going to be traveling back and forth. So again, we see that as a Hoke Field expense. And so we've shifted it to that project. We've cut approximately $67,000 out of regular education and industrial technology, instructional technology of Terry's account, and then transportation, we cut about $85,000, and that transportation, the $85,000 was for special education transportation. So that's where the bulk of the $976,000 right there. That's where we cut it from. Questions on that? Patrick.
Just curious about the special education and the autistic program that you have going on. Are any of these students, they're already, I'm assuming, in-house now, that is going to be moved to Helen Thompson? I'm just wondering, because I know there's some programs where it's 24/7, 365. I don't know if the school districts are responsible to pay for those tuitions as well. I just want to make sure that the service is exactly what the kids need, is my number one thing. And the other concern is, you know, both my boys go to Helen Thompson, so I know how overcrowded it is. Is that going to be, are you still moving pre-K to LER? Is that still on the docket, or what's the game plan for the overcrowding there?
I'm going to break your question into two. I'm going to ask Alicia to answer the first part of your question. Later on in the presentation, I want to update the board on my thinking about space. There is the hope still that we will move forward with a modular unit that could be approved using federal monies. That would provide us 4 classroom spaces over at Helen Thompson. If we do that, there would not be a need to move pre-K. We could keep pre-K at Helen Thompson, which I know is important to the community to do that. So, and if we have those additional 4 classrooms we can accommodate the STEPS program over there. Alicia, could you speak to the other part of Patrick's question?
Yeah, Patrick, can you repeat the first part of your question? I just want to make sure that I'm answering it correctly.
I guess the gist of it is, are we still offering the same services to these kids? I don't know the number of kids that are going to be in-house now compared to being sent away. I just want to make sure that they have the same level of education, care, etc. That's just one of my concerns.
Yeah, so we would be offering the same exact program that we're currently offering at LER. Moving it over to Helen Thompson will allow us to expand and keep some more kiddos and potentially bring some students back into the program. So right now we have 4 students that are currently in 3rd grade over at LER. So what happens is that the program is K2, but we often will keep students for a 3rd year in the program. This helps with transitioning students out of the program. We want to make sure that they're successful in a lesser restrictive setting, so like the resource room, as opposed to the self-contained classroom, while we still have the STEP supports. So right now, we have some students that we would not be able to program for in 4th grade. So if we don't expand the program, then we have students that we're going to have to send out of district because we don't have the staff or the capacity to program for them. If we did expand, then we certainly could continue programming for them in a lesser restrictive setting, and they would still have access to non-disabled peers. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
The programming would be the same. It would allow us to hang on to some students that we would have to otherwise send to a special purpose private school.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't taking services away from, like, just to save $1 to, the kids that would have to be sent away that would benefit from an off-campus program. I just want to make sure those kids still get the care they need. But if something we can do in-house and save money, then obviously I'm for that. So
yeah, we always want to look at less restrictive, right? So if a student goes to a special purpose private school, they have absolutely no access to non-disabled peers. So if we can program for them here, we certainly want to keep them here. However, there are times that we are just not able to do so. And we would still continue to send students to special purpose private schools if we weren't able to program for them. So if their needs were more than what we programmed for, we would still send out.
okay, perfect. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Jim?
Yes. Do we have any students that we will be continuing to send to a special purpose remote school? Or were they all going to be coming here to one of our schools, our own schools?
No, we will still have students that we are going to continue at a special purpose private school.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Then looking back at this sheet, some current assumptions. One, health insurance right now is budgeted for as a 3% increase. We learned today that the increase for insurances is going to be capped at 4.2%. Our mod rate this year was really low. So we are hopeful that we will be able to lower that 3%. And ideally, it will come in at 0%. If that is true, then we'll be able to reduce the budget by approximately another $100,000. We were informed today that we will be notified no later than April 6th. So before your budget is officially approved, we will know what our health insurance is. So we're crossing our fingers. We are hopeful that that number will be decreased, okay? Now in the budget, there are a couple new, a couple additions that I wanted to bring to your attention. One, at LER, the librarian position is being increased from an Ed Tech 2 position to an Ed Tech 3 position. When the Ed Tech contract was negotiated by the board back in 2019, I think it was agreed that the Ed Tech librarian positions truly are Ed Tech 3 positions, not Ed Tech 2 positions. So a couple years ago, we made the transition to change their titles, their positions to Ed Tech 3s. We have one person who's been grandfathered, and that person's been grandfathered until the end of this year. So effective the beginning of next year, per the contract, that needs to be an Ed Tech 3 position. So this budget reflects that change. The other thing that I've put in here is a half-time assistant principal at Helen Thompson. The enrollment at Helen Thompson is the highest of all of our elementary schools. And the demands over there are considerable. And if we shift another program over to Helen Thompson, Katie needs some support. So my vision for this is that we build into the budget a half-time assistant principal for her, and then the other half of the position could be federally funded out of some of the ESSER money, and it would provide some additional instructional support so that the person could support teachers and in the classroom, and could support Katie in any way that she needs around instruction. So that is a new request. It's not something that we've had in the past, but as I really look at her numbers are edging around 300 students, and it's just the job is becoming too demanding, too much for just one person to handle by themselves. I really think if we don't want to burn out our administrators, it's really important that we get some help over there. So I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that. Jim, your hand is raised. Is that from before?
I'm showing my hand. Oh, lower hand. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you. Okay, I don't see any questions. So then moving along, I don't see, I don't believe that the budget you're looking at tonight is our final budget. I still think that there's more room where we can cut. One, I believe that there are some funds that are currently built into the budget that we can transfer over to federal dollars, part of the COVID money or ESSER funds. And I'm going to show you what those are in just a moment. And those total roughly $280,000 that I think we can shift out of our budget over to the federal dollars. I really believe that we're going to see our health insurance decrease. Right now, I've thrown in 100,000. I'm hopeful that that's what we'll see. The other thing that we are hearing that our federal funding for special education, referred to as IDEA, that the IDEA is going to, they're going to provide in that account a 20% increase for 1 year only in that funding level. So based on that, we are projecting that we could probably remove another $100,000 out of the special ed line for the out of district tuition account, thus saving us another 100 and bringing us to about $480,000 more that I believe that we can reduce from the budget. In my conversations with Andrea, I'm asking that we then go back and look to see if there's anything else that we can cut so that we can be looking at sending a budget to taxpayers around under $600,000, if at all possible. and even lower, of course, if we can. I just don't know if that's possible. All right. So I don't know, can everyone see this? Oh, Matt?
Would that put us at about 3 or 4%, or maybe as high as 5?
That would bring our total budget increase to under 3%.
Yeah.
And it would bring our to taxpayers, I think it would be around 5%. It would, I don't know, do you have, Andrea, an estimate? You're muted.
If you would like me to share, I can share.
Can you just not present, but just
Sure.
tell us roughly what that would look like?
So it'd be a single-digit increase for each of the 4 communities. It would be an overall increase, a budget increase of 2.29%, or 509, almost 600,000. The increase to the locals would be 569,000, or a 5.71% overall increase. None of the towns would be in double digits.
And could you say approximately how much in dollars that would be for each community, roughly?
So based on what you're projecting, it would be an increase of about 197,000 for Gardner, an increase of about 152,000 for Pittston, an increase of approximately 58,000 for Randolph, and an increase of approximately 163,000 for West Gardner.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So that certainly looks better.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
So right now, you should be able to see on your screen potential transfers to ESER. Becky?
Yes, I just wanted to ask about the IDEA funding, why it was limited. What's the expectation? I mean, those costs don't go down, so what are we supposed to do after that?
I don't know. I don't know how to answer your question. We were just informed that IDEA will be funded an additional 20% for 1 year only. The understanding that probably with COVID, with learning loss for students, that school districts across the country could benefit from having those additional dollars.
Can I take a stab, Pat?
Sure.
So what we do know is that our expenses are increasing faster than our IDEA allocation, and that this year we've had to move, typically in a year we have a set number of ed techs as well as a district placement. Because our expenditures are increasing faster than the allocation, we've had to move a staff member into the regular budget as well as move that out of district placement to the regular budget. With the increase of a 1 year respite, at least, we'll be able to move those undeclared placements, basically placements that aren't for students, they're just basically open slots, to IDEA for another year. So, yeah.
Okay.
Did that help?
Well, it does, but yes, it absolutely does, and I'm happy for the 1 year. I'm just I'm taking a stab at 40 years ago, IDEA was supposed to be funded at a much higher rate than it is.
Yeah.
And I continue to be hopeful that that there's going to be some understanding that those numbers really don't shift and change. And I'm certainly really happy about 20%, but I think we just need to keep poking the tiger to do what was voted into law all those years ago.
It certainly doesn't keep up with our rising costs.
Not at all.
Nope.
Not at all. And I want all of our students, every single one, to have every single thing that they need. And we can provide it so well within our district. So we're so capable. So just thought I'd ask.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Andrea, for helping me out. So what I have projected on the screen right now are potential transfers to ESER. So of the $280,000 that I just referenced, How I came up with those numbers would be from the technology department, that we would take $38,000 out for various software licenses. These software licenses we purchased this year, and they were key to us being able to provide remote instruction, both synchronous and asynchronous, to our families. So not knowing what next year is going to bring, we anticipate, or I anticipate right now, that there will still be some form of remote learning. It's going to be really important for us to still maintain these licenses. So we've shifted them over to the federal dollars. Special education, we have Read 180. That is a program that we've had in place for a number of years. Outside of special ed, what we have learned is that our special ed teachers require some professional development around Read 180. It has changed, and we need to make sure that they are prepared to provide that program. We also have some new software that they need, plus ESY. ESY is extended school year, and this is $35,000 above and beyond what we usually budget for our extended school year program for our special needs students. Curriculum, for those of you on the curriculum committee, this is probably not new information. We are looking at our ELA curriculum, our social studies curriculum, and Jolly Grammar. And so here's the cost associated with that. We firmly believe that we can use the federal dollars to cover the cost of these programs. Operations and maintenance. We've been trying to get an adult bathroom at the middle school. There's only one bathroom, and it's down by the main office. And it requires teachers to be walking throughout the building to be able to get down to an adult bathroom or using a student bathroom. So I think for COVID purposes, I believe that I can justify the importance of staff having their own bathroom up on the second floor over in the 7th and 8th grade wing. So I want to shoot for that. HT, for those of you who've been on finance, you know that every year we budget for replacement of about 3 heat pumps at Helen Thompson, going out like, what, 10 years, I think, right? It's a 10-year plan. So my thought is I'm going to try to have this these ESSER monies, the federal dollars, cover the cost, about $400,000, to have all of them updated and replaced. But in this year's budget, it's 16.5. So I've pulled the 16.5 for that. And then board room setup. Becky and I have talked many times at the workshop the other night. Board members were talking about, wouldn't it be great if we all came back together? But in order to do that, we have to do some finagling with the boardroom and make some changes in order to adhere to the social distancing requirements so they're still in place. So we're looking at whether there's some furniture that we can purchase to make that happen. So I'm pulling that out of the budget, and I believe I can have that funded through the ESSER grant. So that's where the $279,000 comes from, that I believe I can safely remove from the budget and have it funded by federal dollars. Questions on that? Jim?
Yes, let me get that hand down. There we go. For the boardroom, are we looking at technology so that we can keep projecting our meetings to the general public? Is that part of that 15, or is that just for furniture and we are looking at a technology area for the other part?
That is just for furniture, but I'm going to show you in a few minutes. I'm going to show you how I anticipate and recommend that we spend the rest of the federal dollars that are available to us. And I have some money in that account or in under those federal dollars to help take care of some technology for the boardroom.
Good,
So
thank
I'll
you.
show that to you shortly, okay? All right, then I'm going to click out of this and let's switch over to Alyssa has joined us. Hi, Alyssa.
Hi there.
All right, I want to get the time here.
I think I got on at like 6:10, Pat, just for reference.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you. Okay, then what I want to present now is the enrollment staffing projections. All right, so behind the scenes, this work is done every single year, and for finance committee members, you've seen this before. And what I try to do is in the first column, I will take this year's enrollment numbers, this year's staff, and then I calculate what that means for class size, and then we roll it over into anticipated enrollment for next year. All right. So what this shows, if you start with LER, what this shows, if as you roll over to next year, is that our second grade classroom, where we currently have only 3 teachers, if we don't make an adjustment and don't shift a teacher over there, we could have class sizes of approximately 24, 25 students. That's not going to work. That is definitely outside of your class size policy. And so you will see that I've highlighted under the class size policy section that we need to have a 4th teacher over there, okay? If you switch to Riverview, you will see that Riverview, based upon projections for next year, they do not need to have another teacher. So that teaching position, we're not talking people, that teaching position can be shifted over to LER. Now you will see, however, that I've also highlighted, like under grade 5, and I'm not sure if you can see my note. I've made a note that while we can shift a person or a position rather this coming year, I also am noting that that grade 2 that is going to be at LER next year will be at Riverview the following year. So while we may not need that position at Riverview next year, we will need it the following year. So I'm being very conscious of that. I want to make sure that we're not shifting a people around just for 1 year, only to have people have to shift back the following year. So you will see a little bit more about my proposal on how to keep another teacher at Riverview next year so that we're not having that shift from year to year, if that makes sense. Looking at Helen Thompson, and these numbers, kind of back to Cullen's question, the numbers, the projections, they do include homeschoolers, individuals who were homeschooled for the first time this year. I've inserted the numbers, anticipating that the majority of them will return next year, but of course we don't know for certain whether that will happen or not. If we look at Helen Thompson, we will have class sizes in grade 5 of about 23.5, so that's around 24. So thinking about the need for space, and the modular unit that we're trying to purchase potentially, having that additional space would allow us to break our grade 5 classroom into 3 classrooms potentially, and have a teacher funded using some of the federal monies. All right, it would not be in the budget, it would be covered there. The class size is a little bit low, but given that the students have not been in the full year, we are trying to minimize our class sizes as much as possible. Looking at Pittston Randolph, grade 5 again. If you look at their current staffing level of 2, we would have class sizes next year of 25. So also I'm looking at using some federal dollars to add another grade 5 teacher. And that would bring your class sizes closer in line with all of the other class sizes, around 17. The middle school, you will see that the middle school right now, we are projecting next year that there will be an increase of about 16 students. And at the high school, this number is deceiving. It shows a decrease of 25, but what it doesn't show is every year we always receive requests from students in RSU 12. They don't have a high school in RSU 12. And so those students get to select which high school they want. So we will receive requests from students who wish to attend Gardner, and we receive tuition for those students. And that's not taken into account here. I know Chad has already been in contact, or some families have already been in contact with Chad, requesting to attend Gardner next year. So that's what we're estimating at the present time. And as I said before, the 83 students that I have listed here for homeschooling, we're not sure whether that will materialize or not. So we'll just have to see. We'll have to see what happens. Questions regarding our enrollment and staffing projections? Okay, Cullen.
Sorry, just one, and it kills me to ask, but I'd like to know, are we expecting the senior class to graduate at the normal rate, or would you anticipate any number of students who might choose to do the 12th grade over again?
I will refer to Chad. I know Chad is on. Would you like to answer that question, please?
Yeah, I can do that. I would say that our goal is for everyone to graduate as they normally would, and we're working with a number of kids that are at risk right now. And so we're putting some support programs in place and some opportunities to clean up the incompletes that many of them had from the spring semester of last year, and some classes that they did not pass. So we've been having some staff members work with them one-on-one through our credit recovery program. And as I said, our goal is for everyone to graduate on time.
That's great news. Thank you.
Andrea?
I just wanted to add that nobody was more excited about the thought of our homeschoolers returning than I am. So just a reminder, our ID279, or our state funding, is based on the number of children who are in our district. And when you lose 100 students in a year, it greatly reflects in your subsidy. So I am hoping that we gain all of those homeschoolers back so that we once again see an increase in our subsidy. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you, Andrea. Jim?
Yes, could you go back up to the elementary for a minute, please? Or are you there now? Yeah, okay, that's good. Down, I would like to look at Helen Thompson and Pittston if we could. Okay.
Helen Thompson and Pittston.
Randolph, there we go.
Okay.
I noticed that it's a pretty small class on the 5th graders once we put 3 in, which is good. Are we hiring someone for a year, or is that going to be, we're going to be trying to keep that individual in place as an ongoing effort to reduce class sizes in both cases, actually?
The thought right now, Jim, is that we will use federal dollars to pay for these positions for 2 years only. Once the federal dollars are done and used, and they have to be expended by the end of September 2023. At that time, those positions would also be eliminated. Otherwise, we're in a position where we would be adding $800,000, $1 million to the budget just to keep all of those positions. It's not something that we can afford, but we do wish to use the money at this time to address some of the class sizes and other ways of addressing what they're referring to as learning loss.
That was what I was thinking. I just wanted to clarify that. And also, the individuals that we're going to be hiring, are they going to be aware of the fact that this is a relatively temporary assignment? So that they're not expecting, unless hope, maybe there'll be another opening someplace within the district, but we're going to be upfront with them then, I would assume.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We have a moral obligation to let them
agree.
know that it's only a 1 or a 2 year position. And with that, I mean, you are right. We have retirements, we have other people who leave. So it may mean that someone could find a permanent position in the district. But no, we do have a moral obligation to let them know that that's the plan.
That's all I wanted to make sure, because I having hired a few people myself over the years, I want to make it perfectly clear that it is something that we're looking at hard. So thank you. That's all.
You're welcome. But that actually, Jim, is a good lead in to what I want to show the board next. So let me pull up my next tab. Okay. All right, so the administration and I have been working to identify how to spend and on what to spend the ESSER money. Now, as a reminder, we have ESSER 2, which we've already been awarded 1,615,000 and change. We do not yet know how much money we're going to receive from ESSER 3. We've been told that it's going to be approximately double the amount that we receive from ESSER 2. So if it's approximately double, I'm planning on $3.2 billion. So we have a total of $4,800,000 to spend to help address COVID-related issues. Now, with the ESSER 3 money, 20% of that money must be spent on evidence-based interventions to support students. And that can be done in a variety of ways. I think as we look at the curriculum that we're going to purchase, that meets the criteria. We look at reducing class sizes, that will meet the criteria. And we want to look at hiring some additional coaches, instructional coaches. That will meet the criteria as well. So as we look over here, you can see how we are presently thinking of ways that we should best utilize these resources. And we're doing it in a couple areas. We're looking at facilities and whether there are some facility updates that need to be done, and looking at that evidence-based interventions and how do we actually support students and support academic growth. So first I have the high school, and you will see that we're looking at adding some additional outdoor classrooms. Next year, well, I don't know the parameters that we're going to have to work within yet. I am told that we should expect that masks will still be worn and some of the spacing requirements will still exist. So in order to try to bring more students back next year and try to be more full-time, the more outdoor classrooms, the more space that we have, the better. So there's an outdoor classroom. We have a window replacement. The T-wing, for those of you who know where the T-wing is, that's really where we drive into the school. If you're facing the high school, it's going to be on your left. It's that wing as you closest to the student parking lot. And many of those windows don't open, they don't work. And so we want to replace those windows. We need an additional special education teacher at the high school to cover some caseloads. So you will see, because we can spend this money over 2 years, we're putting salaries in for 2 years, and these are just estimates. And I want to note that the teacher salaries that I'm including at 90,000, that it's an estimate. It includes salary and benefits, health insurance and other benefits, but also because we're going to use federal dollars to pay for those salaries, we also have to calculate in approximately another 20% to cover main PERS. All right, so that really increases the total cost to the district by using the federal dollars. At the high school, it looks like there's going to be a need for math teacher. So we're going to need to lower some of those class sizes, but based upon current sign up, we need math for 2 years. We're looking at a new marquee sign that would allow us to better communicate with our public. It would be, there would be Wi-Fi access to it so that staff would not have to trudge through the snow in the winter and get on a ladder and try to change the sign. They would all be able to change the sign and better communicate with the public from inside the building. Credit recovery, we want to dedicate money to credit recovery to support some of our struggling learners. At the middle school, I've already talked about the staff bathroom. We also have another outdoor classroom. It would look the same as what's at the high school. Also, the new marquee sign, again, same as at the high school. We're looking potentially at some after-school programming. There used to be an after-school program at the middle school, 1 day a week, so students who are struggling would be able to stay after school. That has not been flushed out. And I think I actually put some money in this line under another section here, but we are looking at that. Instructional coach. We have in the budget currently a math instructional coach, a position we were not able to fill this past year. It's still in the budget. So the plan, we have begun advertising for it, and we would like to place that coach at the middle school and then add another instructional coach so that they would have two, one that would focus on ELA and one that would focus on math. We also need to have an additional teacher for social studies for 2 years. Then moving into Helen Thompson, here's the modular unit that I've mentioned. Now, you're going to swallow hard when you look at the numbers. We've swallowed hard. It's over $700,000. It is crazy right now, the expense of construction and construction materials. To think that 2 years ago over at Pittston, we got exactly the same design, the same numbers, the same amount of space, and it was around 350 to 400,000, and now it's going to be 700,000. Here are the heat pumps that I mentioned. Here's the other half-time position that I connected to the assistant principal position, the half-time instructional support, and here's the classroom teacher position that I mentioned. At LER, we also need window replacements. We have windows there that will not open. We have a nurse, and the nurse is someone that we hired this year using federal dollars for 1 year only, and we'd like to maintain that position for a couple more years at least. Over at Pittston, we've talked about building or adding on to the existing modular 2 additional classrooms. And those 2 additional classrooms would be $352,000. With that, I built in an expanded parking lot and paving. And for those of you who are familiar with the Pittston Randolph School, it would be located near the road in front of the grade 1 kindergarten section of the building. we had some work done before and we've kind of laid out. I don't remember exactly how many parking spaces that we could get. I think it ranged somewhere between 8 and 12. And so we've put some money in for that. And then here's the grade 5 classroom teacher that I mentioned. At Riverview, here's a window replacement. And this is where I put in another teacher. I put in another teaching position here that I think can certainly benefit Riverview for a year. Because I want to limit moving a teaching position in and out of a building every year. It negatively impacts the culture of a school, of a building, and the cohesiveness of a building. If one year you have 9 teachers, the next year you have 10, then the following, you're back to 9. We want to maintain some stability. So I've built this in hopes that we can maintain a little bit of stability. K-5, we'd like to see another math coach, another literacy coach. We already have a math coach and a literacy coach. Right now, they're covering all 4 schools, plus they're providing some support at the middle school. By hiring these 2, we would be able to limit the scope of their work to 2 buildings each. We have built in here a social worker for K-5. Presently, we have 2 full-time social workers that are spread across the 4 buildings, and it's my understanding that they are at capacity. So I'd like to add another one, especially with some of the social and emotional issues that we're concerned with. And then I've put in a social worker, another one that would be shared 6-12. And then we have curriculum. Some of the information that I've already shared with you previously about the social studies, the ELA, and some of the trade books that we would be able to cover the cost of that. Technology, the heat server. The heat server is for Gabe, and that would allow him to remotely better manage the heat in each of our buildings and all of our HVAC boiler systems. We need to get some internet Wi-Fi down on Hope Field. We are having classes down there, our PE classes, and those teachers are not able to access the internet. So we're thinking we'll be able to use maybe some of these monies for that. Here's the software license that I've previously mentioned. The lead nurse, which is a position you've approved in the past, plus contact tracing. In our district, I don't know about other districts, but in our district, the only time we find out about a positive case is on a Sunday, on a Friday night. And so our poor nurses have to do the contact tracing, and so it all seems to be falling outside of the workday. So they're being compensated for all of that additional time. So we needed to set up a little money there. Jim, here's the boardroom setup, and you can see boardroom technology. I have no idea what it's going to cost. That is just a random number that I threw in there. We have a little more time to research it. I also put money in here for the business office. We talked once before about the potential of hiring someone to help the business office to manage these funds. I'm not sure if we will really move forward with this proposal or not. Andrea and I are discussing it. There are pros and cons, as you can imagine, bringing in someone new who doesn't know. And to teach that person, sometimes it's not worth your time. Sometimes it's better just to do it yourself because you know what needs to happen. So we're discussing that. And here's special ed. We've already talked about these items. Plus, I also added English language learners, ESY, as well. Now, I've broken this down into 2 parts. And actually, my numbers here are more concrete than what I just showed you. So I'm thinking about how do we move forward now to make sure that we're ready to open in the fall with everything that we need. We're told that the ESER 3 money, the application for those funds will not be available for 60+ days, which pushes us out until, I don't know, maybe June before we find out, before we can submit an application to use those monies. So I've broken apart ESER 2 and ESER 3. And because we can access ESER 2 now, I have identified the items that I would really like for us to pursue now, if you guys are in support of me doing so, as a way of beginning to advertise for positions and to order for like the modular classroom, if that's indeed what we're going to do. If you're in support, and I'll kind of walk through this very quickly, then I will submit an application this week to the Department of Education for the use of these funds as we identify tonight. If they approve it, then that will allow us to immediately begin ordering the modular units that we need to have in place, and it will allow us to begin advertising for these positions. So as you can see, of the $1.6 million, the way I've broken this down is I would prioritize the modular unit in the classroom at Helen Thompson, the modular unit in the classroom teacher over at Pittston, the nurse at LER, because we already have that person that's already employed, the math teacher and the special ed teacher at the high school, the social studies teacher at the middle school, and then that leaves me with about $16,000. So I would use, I would cover the cost of some of the trade books that we need for our curriculum department with ELA trade books. And so if this makes sense and that you're supportive of this, then I would, as I said, I would complete the necessary application to the Department of Education and then let you know whether they indeed approve the request that I've made. Alyssa?
Yeah, Pat, I was just going to say, as soon as we can do it, it seems very thought out and detailed. I think the sooner you get that approval right, then we'll know timeline and what we can actually get done. So I appreciate your effort.
Thank you. And that's the idea. I'm afraid that if we wait, we're going to be in a situation that we were in with the Pittston Randolph School when our modular unit didn't arrive until fall. I don't want that to happen again. Jim?
Yes, I couldn't agree more. I think we need to get these, particularly the classroom. The lead time on those things was ridiculous, and it probably will be worse now. But I am concerned if we spend too much, ER, whatever it is, too money to get these, will that affect us in how we use, will they penalize us with EL3 money or whatever the money is? The second part, do they allow us to flow freely between the two groups of monies? That's what I think we need to do this, but.
We can't flow freely between them. There will be projects identified for both. And the next document that I was going to show you is how I presently recommend that we use the ESER 3, okay? I am pretty confident that the projects I've identified under ESER 2 meet the criteria and will be approved by the Department of Ed. I am equally confident that the projects that we've identified here under ESER 3 will also be approved. It's just the timeline will lag of when that will happen. And one of my concerns with that timeline is something I also wanted to mention to you. Now is the time if we want to begin advertising for not only our regular classroom teachers and staff, but if we want to hire the instructional coaches that we believe very strongly is going to be the best way of supporting our students. If we support our staff and give them the support, then our students are going to benefit through the instruction. And so I am hoping that even though this application for ESER 3 cannot be submitted for until whenever it becomes available, I would still like to advertise for anticipated openings for those positions, for those coaching positions. Because again, if we wait, we're going to miss our opportunity of attracting and hiring the best. And that's, of course, what we want. Teresa?
Hi. So my question is, the 90,000, is that for 2 years of teaching?
No, that's per year. We don't know what step a person will be hired on. So we don't know what their salary is going to be. We have to cover for their health insurance and all of their other types of benefits. And so we don't know whether someone has single insurance or family insurance. And then because we're using federal monies, it's our responsibility to pay the state's portion of main PERS. That tacks on another 20%. So I'm thinking 90,000 is at the top range. We certainly could hire people who are less experienced, who will not cost us the entire 90,000. But over 2 years, looking at my spreadsheet, over 2 years, it's $180,000 per position.
Okay, because as you know, I have family members that teach in the district, and I don't know how many years it took them to even reach that level. So I'm just thinking it's kind of high, in my opinion.
It's actually, again, it's not the salary. It's not just the salary. It's looking at salary. So your salary could be 60,000, but then your health insurance could be 18,000, and then 20% of your salary on top of that is main PERS. So it adds up really, really quickly when you start looking at the benefit package. So you can't look at 90 and think that that's someone's salary. It is not.
Okay. And again, like you said, it could be a single person insurance, or it could be a family program.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And of course, if we hire someone and their benefit package and their salary does not meet the 90,000, then this budget would be reworked so that that money could be redirected elsewhere.
Okay. And then my other question is, I've always been, all of my life, and will be till the day I die, need and want. And I know through my own personal experience that building materials are like out in space right now. So a lot of people are actually holding off. A lot of builders and contractors aren't building right now. So I'm wondering if we wait a while on the modulars. I mean, that's just really out there. I mean, what were they last year? 400, and now they're 7. Is that what you said?
Yeah, a couple years ago, there were 400. The problem is, Teresa, the money's available now. It's not going to be available in a couple years.
So this is part of our COVID money then?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
Yes.
Better understanding. Thank you.
You're welcome. So there you go. I guess I don't know what else to say at this point. This is what I've kind of mapped out. You can see how I propose that we use the ESER 3 money versus the ESER 2. Again, these are all estimates at this point. And I would hope that, one, you would be supportive, that I can submit the ESER 2 grant that includes those modular units and allows me to begin advertising for the open positions. But I also hope that you would be supportive that I can advertise anticipated openings for those coaching positions and the teaching position over at Riverview. Jim?
Yes, I think what you're saying is absolutely correct. I think we should go ahead and advertise for our teachers and any staff that we're going to add, because we're not going to be spending that money until the next school year. So we have time to process everything through the federal government. Actually, and on the modulars, if we don't get them ordered now, I bet we wouldn't get them in until Christmas, or maybe early in 2022 22. So I think we should go ahead with it, and that's what I think is right.
Becky?
We may be in the middle of the line already. There's very likely, that's been the conversation at the weekly meetings with the DOE, is what we can be using for buildings right now. And if some of, even any of these restrictions, 3 foot, 6 foot, whatever we're going to be left with, we're not the only ones that have this situation. There's lots of older buildings. There's lots of different configurations across the state and across the country. So we may be already in the middle of the line. So yes, I think we absolutely need to jump on this quickly.
Yeah, I agree. Teresa, your hand is raised. Is that from before, or do you have a new question? Okay. Matthew?
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Thanks, Matthew.
Hey, the one thing that kind of concerns me, and it doesn't concern me, it's just a comment. All this money that we can use for buildings and all this other stuff, they don't allow it for curriculum.
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, in our curriculum committee meetings, Angela's always talked about, they're very careful on, we talk about learning loss and all this other stuff, but there's a number of curriculum items that she has mentioned that we can't spend a lot of the CARES Act money on, or any of the other stuff. It kind of has to be taken out of Hyde, if you will.
So Matt, under ESER 2, I have $16,000 for curriculum. And then if you look under ESER 3, we've dedicated over $114,000 worth of materials for your math, for your ELA curriculum, for your social studies curriculum, and for a lot of the trade books. So we are looking at spending approximately, I don't know, $130,000, $140,000 on curriculum out of these monies.
Okay, so the last time we spoke, I thought, I was under the impression that, and I'm not sure if anybody else on the committee was, but I was under the impression that we weren't going to be able to spend any federal money on improving curriculum just because. So
no, we are.
great. So.
We are, and again, under Ed Tech, and I'll have Angela respond to that in just a second. Also under ESER 3, as I said, 20% of that has to be evidence-based interventions, and the curriculum purchases fit that criteria perfectly.
Oh, that's great news. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Angela?
Yeah, so just building upon the curriculum meeting we had a couple weeks ago, because we've done such a good job with our data analysis as a district over time, we have a pretty good sense of what's needed, and we're trying to align those needs with some strong instructional materials to support our curriculum development process. And with ELA and social studies both being brand new, we can make that leap with our federal funds as a direct connection to our long-term data and our immediate crunch with learning loss. It's also why we've requested coaching, because we're realizing that in our year 1 implementation of math, the needs for our coach increased dramatically on top of the fact that it's a pandemic. And with next year's year 1 implementation with literacy and social studies, which includes informational text, we anticipate the demand on our literacy coach to just increase drastically.
Thank you.
Jim?
Yes, I did not get a copy, but can you send a copy of this document you just shared with us in the email to us?
Yeah, I did earlier today.
I couldn't find it. I was looking for it. This very last document where we had the increases and where you're going to ESER 2 and ESER 3. I just looked. I didn't find them.
Okay. Did other board members receive this document? Did you see it?
I received it.
Okay. So I I will resend it to you, Jim. Others are saying they have it, so I'll happily resend that. I'll
Thank you
happily
very
do
much.
that at the end of the meeting. You're welcome. Mhm. Matt, is your hand raised again? No. Okay, thank you. That's all right, thanks. So that's what I have for the budget presentation. It's a lot of information. I guess I would just kind of open it up to see how board members are feeling about the proposed budget as it stands, and about the proposed budget as I see it looking in 2 or 3 weeks, once we have additional information regarding health insurance and IDEA funding. Becky, what are your thoughts?
I think it's really great work. I think there's a lot that needs to be done. I think it's a lot of money, but I also know how we do our budgeting. We are not frivolous. We don't have we don't have a wants list really. We have a needs list, and our community has been really trusting, and I think that we've built our budgets with their trust in mind. So my hope, if I had a hope, it would be that our health insurance comes in at a 0, but and maybe it will. Who knows? We've had that happen before, but yeah, I think it's for a very thoughtful budget, and I appreciate that your hard work bringing that number down. I think it's
Okay,
wonderful.
so you think you can support
I can
under 600?
absolutely. I can absolutely support that. Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. Jim, you were next.
Yeah, I will support this. I want to be able to, if I get questions, at least I'd like to have something where I can refer our constituents where to get some more answers. This is a pretty hefty increase over what we looked at last year. And I'm not complaining, you know, I don't think we're being frivolous, but we need to be able to explain this to the folks who are going to be opening their checkbook and writing their taxes out and paying the local towns. It's going to be a hefty increase. I'm looking at, you know, 18,000, 13,000 a month on the first 2, and then about 5,000 a month and about 12,000. So it's going to be a lot of increases to the local towns, and we need to be able to explain ourselves and make sure we're available to get them some answers if they want it.
Jim, I'm not clear when you're talking about 13 a month and 5,000 a month. I'm not clear as to what you're referencing.
I'm looking at, let's take Randolph, $58,000 increase in their share.
Okay.
You divide that by 12, we got approximately $5,000. Then you look at the individual ones. My math may be off by $1,000, but I'm pretty close. But it's going to be a monthly increase to each one of the local towns, and that's where I'm getting at my number. So I suspect we will hear about it. So, and that's fine. I will be, you know, we'll be able to handle those questions as long as we ourselves understand where we're spending the money and why we're spending the money. I think everything we're talking about is spot on, but that's why I asked for the documentation that I can't find, but so
sure.
That's why.
Okay, that makes sense to me. I would also remind board members as you're talking to constituents that another factor here as to why there's an increase for taxpayers is because the state valuation in all of the towns increased by $10 million.
Yes.
So as a result of that increase, it shifts more of the burden onto the taxpayers.
I was expecting, knowing what the increase was, I was expecting a major increase in our share, and that that's something we can explain too, but it doesn't make the taxpayer any happier.
Right.
And I am one. It doesn't make me any happier either. So thank you.
You're welcome. Matt, you had your hand raised. Are you all set?
Yeah, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, Becky?
I just, in reference to Jim, I don't love raised taxes either. However, oftentimes what Andrea does, so this is a question, is breaks it down by household. And so I'll be looking, can we expect that at some point?
Once we get closer to a bottom line,
Yeah.
I need to get that information from the towns as far as their obligations. So, yep.
Yes, and I'm not trying to pressure you at all. I
No.
just wanted to, I'm trying to give assurance that there will be more information that's more clearly understood coming. It's just not here yet. Thank you.
All right, other questions? Let me see, who was next? Colin, you were next.
Hi, Pat. I just wanted to ask, it's going to be weird because, sometimes it doesn't seem like it's tied to money, but morale across the district, does this budget give you what you need to maintain morale and instill confidence by the employees? Because I appreciate how hard you've been working to cut it down and cut it down and cut it down. But this has been a tremendously stressful and damaging year for teachers in particular, but also the support staffs. And if we come out of the budget process with something that the employees look at and say, like, great, the community has our back, we will preserve talent. And in preserving talent, we preserve standards. So I also don't want my taxes to go up, but I don't want my school quality to go down. So do you feel like this is a good compromise to get you there? You talked about this is a budget of what we need, not what we want, but I just want to make sure that staff morale is considered in what you're asking for.
Yeah, I might ask a couple administrators to respond. They're in the buildings with the teachers. They may have a better sense. My sense is yes, that we have built into the budget, or at least using federal dollars, that we're adding teaching staff to help lower class sizes. I think that helps morale. We're looking at hiring coaches to better support our teachers, to work side by side with them to support them, especially if we're going to be implementing new curriculum. So we're thinking about them in those terms. We're looking at providing additional space in a couple buildings that have historically been extremely tight. I think that is a great benefit to them and helps morale as well. So that's my initial thought. I would look to, is there an administrator who has a particularly strong view one way or the other who would like to say something? Karen.
I would just say too, our school nurse has been outstanding here too. She's helped with doing lots of things in the classrooms, from nutrition to fitness to morale boosting activities. We're doing a sunflower thing at our school this year, this time right now, and she's part of that. And I think that's just another, she also takes a huge weight off of the office staff for, kids who are calling in sick, got questions about quarantining and all of that. And if we're still in this pandemic, even a little bit next year, it's just going to help relieve a lot of that pressure off the office staff, which, as most of you know, the office staff really does set the tone for the whole building. And the less stressed they are, it just has a ripple effect. So I'm really excited that the nurse is going to be funded for at least another 2 years.
Great. Any other administrator? Okay. Alyssa? I'd call him first. I'd say, Colin, did we answer your question?
I'll take silence as approval. I mean, I think if there was a pressing need that hasn't been addressed, then it would have been a great time to come up. So thank you.
You're welcome. Alyssa?
Yeah, I'm wondering, as Jim was speaking about the impact to the communities, I don't like to give people more work, but I wonder if there's a way to do like a one-pager that shows the explanation as we get closer on the budget at a high level, and then what these ESSER funds are doing, just so, because we know not everyone's going to read every document like we do, and I'm just thinking that might, help to reinforce. I know we're not able to have budget meetings and things, just a thought I had. and I don't want to make Andrea do more things.
But, you know, we have to put out our brochure, Alyssa, so we need to be thinking about how we go about communicating our proposed budget to taxpayers. But I think, you know, your point that community members, taxpayers also need to understand how we're spending the federal dollars is equally important. And so as we kind of build our brochure, I think we should think about that. And how can we best communicate that we have appropriately used those dollars to benefit students, benefit our buildings, benefit taxpayers.
Thank you, Pat. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, right? We hear the 4 point whatever million, and then we hear the increase, and people are gonna, you know, maybe have sticker shock. I think many would if they weren't in the process, you know. So.
Right, and it sounds like a lot of money, but it really doesn't go that far.
I know, exactly, exactly. And that was my second follow-up. Is just, I know, obviously waiting for modulars and teaching staff, those things are priority in curriculum, but when we add these projects, is there money in there for people to help with them, or are we expecting our staff again to step up, which they always do? You know, I kind of am just thinking too, is anything in there to add any support as we take on all this effort as well, or do you feel like we're well suited to do it?
Support in what regard? We do have some money in there for the business office, and we have not yet decided whether we want to pursue hiring someone else to support the central office and overseeing these funds. Sometimes it's more challenging to bring someone on new and train them than just do the work yourself. So
Sure.
we're having that debate.
Yep, and then I'm just thinking of setting up the modulars, like let's say both of them arrive at the same time, you know, poor Gabe already gets pulled in every direction, you know what I mean? And I don't know if that's where, you know, just thinking of those things that we can keep ourselves on track. It's hard, I know, we don't know any of the timelines. So just a thought, I support that effort as you're continuing to plan, I would say. You know, if we need more people to do the things and our staff's already stretched, I think I would sort of encourage you to have I would say I'm fine with that, you know, whatever we can do to help them to get through it. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I appreciate that. The estimates for the modulars do include the hiring of professionals to deal with the installation of those units. You know, hiring electricians, hiring plumbers, you know, those sort of experts. And so that's not going to fall on the shoulders of our staff. Jim?
Yes. To Alyssa's thought, maybe we could hire a project manager that would report directly to Gabe. I know we're going to get electricians, we're going to get the trades in there to do the work, but maybe having somebody that we could hire short term. I have a friend of mine in California that does exactly that. And he goes out on individual jobs. They hire him for 3 months, 2 months, 6 months, whatever. And he makes sure that everything is done as it's supposed to be done on time. And that really works out pretty good. And he likes doing the work. It's not a commitment long term, and it might take some of the load off of Gabe and anybody else. My second thought is on a separate issue. Maybe we could do a video that would explain the budget that we could actually make available, maybe even have a town hall meeting like we do our board meetings, but have a town hall where people could ask us questions directly, similar to what we did. We can't do it in person, but I'm thinking of when we were talking about the Randolph School. You had several local meetings. Those things worked out well. You at least got the information out. We could do something similar to that, have a video prepared and then be available to answer some questions. Maybe one of us from each one of the towns could be available at different meetings. So we could do 2, 3, or 4 meetings, whatever would work, and see if we can get some people and let them know. And this isn't a normal time of doing business as far as the school is concerned. Maybe we could reach more people that way. Just a thought. So
Well, yeah, I can certainly think about a video. We do have to have a budget meeting in regards of being able to take questions. So that is something that we have to do. We'll be doing that virtually anyway. That will be recorded. So anyone who's not able to make it will be able to watch it. And then, of course, all of these meetings are live streamed and then recorded. So anyone who's interested in learning more can also watch or view some of these meetings. So, and I like the idea of a project manager. That does certainly coincide with what Alyssa was recommending. I would have to speak to Gabe about that, but I've written that note down. Becky?
I just noticed in the chat, and honestly, I can't remember if we answered it or not, but Colin wanted to know the expected lifetime of a modular unit.
I don't know. Gabe, are you here?
I don't see this.
Yes, I am. I am here. So yeah, it's really, I can talk to the modular company and see what their projected life expectancy of the building is. The materials that are used are standard materials. The roofing, it's the same roofing that we use on our facilities now with the other buildings that are permanent buildings. So again, those have like a 15 to 20 year warranty on them. And a lot of it is depending on if we maintain. As long as we maintain the buildings, they are going to last longer than if we just let it fall apart. You know, the modular unit, if anybody's walked in it at Pittston, they're great buildings. The teachers really like them out there. The materials they use are good quality. So I think they'll last us a good long time as long as we maintain them.
Great. Becky?
Oh no, whoops. I thought I lowered.
That was it.
That's okay.
Okay. Anything else then on the budget for the time being? Any other questions? Okay, then I am going to shift the conversation to Andrea to speak to us about carry forward money.
Great. So I'm going to start by explaining what carry forward is. In layman's terms, or in a relatable way, it's sort of like the money that you have in your checking account that you don't have allocated for anything. So it's the money that the district has over school years that we've collected that we haven't allocated. Unlike towns who can spend, towns and cities who can spend their unallocated fund balance on whatever they want, the state of Maine places restrictions on unallocated fund balances of school districts. It can only be used for a few things. One of them is what we call carry forward, to apply monies to a future budget year, which is what I'm going to talk about. Or if the community agrees, the community can vote to put it in a special fund balance like we have for special ed for this year, as well as we have another account for construction or facilities maintenance. However, to do that, there needs to be a vote to put the money in by the community and a vote to spend the money by the community. So it's not like we are able to just go and spend fund balance on whatever we want. We are restricted. So I'm going to share the budget worksheet that I presented earlier, and I want to show you where it is on the worksheet. So I'm hoping that everybody can see this. This is the worksheet that I reviewed earlier. Over in this section is the miscellaneous revenue that the district raises other than the amounts coming from the town and from the state. And you will see the biggest pot of this money is carry forward. So every year for the past few years, we have been putting 1.3 million towards our budget to buy down what the locals would actually have to raise. So we're actually helping to keep the cost of our budget down. We are fortunate. We have 2 years of fund balance in our coffers, unlike some other districts who only have a year. And you may have remember when Hank was here, we talked about that. Some school districts are trying to figure out what they're going to have at the end of this year to be able to plan what they're going to be able to use for next year's budget. That's not us. We know now what we have available to use next year and the year after. So I'm going to show you where we get the fund balance from. So fund balance every year is audited as part of, I'm going to stop sharing and share something else with you. So every year, as part of our annual financial audit, we have financial statements created that we're required to have created by the state of Maine. We are required to have an audit every year, and that audit is submitted to the state annually. And if we don't do that, basically, eventually they'd stop sending our subsidy, which probably wouldn't be a good thing. So at the end of FY20, as part of the Statement of Revenues, Expenditures and Changes in Fund Balance, the auditor determined that we have a little over 4 million in fund balance, which sounds like a lot of money, but not really when we talk about where it's going to. So I'm going to share another screen with you. So this figure is the amount of fund balance from the audited statement that the auditor created, that we had at the end of June 30th, 2020. This is the amount that was going towards this year's budget. This is the amount going towards next year's budget and the year after. I've tucked a little bit away, and you can see that we aren't quite there in case that we have one of those, oh my God, years when there's a huge either curtailment or something funky happens with state revenues, and all of a sudden, rather than having to cut our budget, we have additional fund balance to plug the hole for a year. What you'll see is that we currently have approximately at the end of every year about 1.4 million in fund balance. That allows us to fund another year of carry forward. And in a good year, it actually allows us to send a little of that money to either special revenue account for either school construction or special ed. So Pat and I have talked, and I don't think we're in a place where we could, or I don't think, in my opinion, that we are in a place where we would be able to spend additional fund balance. If I applied additional fund balance to this year, that would be that much more revenue that we would have to make up next year and the year after. Otherwise, we would need to get additional subsidy in addition to the additional expenditures that we need to fund. So I just wanted you to see where we were with carry forward, to share my opinion that I don't think that we should actually expend additional fund balance or carry forward to our budget, and the reason why I think the way I do. And like I said, I wanted you to see where we were with our fund balance. The other great piece of having fund balance in our account is when we get $4 million from the federal government, I have money to pay those bills before the state takes 2 months to pay us back. And that was a great thing this year. We were able to, I mean, I wasn't passing a hat around to be able to do payroll. So that was of great help to be able to have that. Other districts who don't have 2 years worth of fund balance, they were taking out revenue anticipation notes, borrowing from the bank and having to pay interest to be able to pay the bills so that they could use federal monies rather. I don't think that's a place that we want to be in. So I just wanted to share this with you and let you know where we were as far as carry forward. Any questions? Wow.
Becky.
Not a question. We are just so fortunate to have you. I don't know of anyone in public service who operates from such a space of integrity and boldness when necessary. So I just want to publicly say thank you because you keep us floating.
I'm a conservative by nature, and sometimes I'm not the most popular person in the room. So, but I tend to be with fund balance and carry forward. So yes.
Right. No, it's wonderful, and it's not about popularity. It's really about doing what's right, and you always do your very best. And
Thanks, Beck.
Just want to say that publicly.
I appreciate that.
Yep.
Here, here.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'll third that. Well done. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you.
All right, Andrea, thank you. I don't see any other hands raised, so why don't we move into the governor's executive order? Do you just want to remind board members what the process is going to be to have our budget approved by the taxpayers?
So this year is a little bit different than last year. So I'm going to share the email from Greg M. with you, just so that you can see it.
And Greg M. is our attorney, who is the moderator of our budget hearings normally.
Yes, sorry. So this year, last year, we were required to have a budget hearing where we would be allowed to take questions or comments from the communities. As you remember, in this district, we have a two-part process in a normal budget year. So we would have the annual budget meeting, and then after that budget was sent to the voters, we would have a referendum. But because of the pandemic, it's kind of thrown everything through a loop. So the governor instead issued an executive order last year, allowing us to hold a public meeting in lieu of our annual budget meeting and then to have a referendum. Our referendum also looked different. Typically, there's one question on the budget, on the vote. It looks very different in a pandemic year. You get to see each of the cost centers or the expenditure articles that I spoke about. So taxpayers can, or voters can actually see more of what's going on than a standard. Do you vote to approve the budget that was passed at the annual budget meeting? So anyway, I digress. So in this year, Greg says that we can do a combination of things. This is what the statute allows. So we can hold a live public hearing with COVID safety guidelines. That's an option. Or we can hold a virtual public hearing. Or we can provide voters with the information on the budget with an opportunity for voters to submit written comments. So we can do more than one, but we at least need to do one.
So Andrea, just for clarity, we can hold if we hold a district hearing virtually and we open it up for members of the public, we will do the voting online. Is that what you're saying? And then that would mean no. Okay.
So we would just do a budget presentation
Okay.
Last year we presented the budget and gave, I think last year you did if memory serves me, you did a PowerPoint and we provided an opportunity for people to submit comments. So that's an option again this year. As you know, we provide voters with the information because we send out the annual budget newsletter. So we already do that. So it would be up to the board what kind of forums they wanted to hold before we went to referendum.
And the board does not have to vote tonight. If you want to give it some thought, you don't have to, but you're going to have to make a decision on how you want to move forward. That is the decision of the board, not the administration. So would it be helpful, Finance Committee members, would it be helpful if Andrea sends in an email in writing the 3 options and what that means, what it looks like? That way you can I know I'm a visual person, so that way you can kind of read through it, you can digest what the options are, and then at the next finance meeting, be prepared to make a decision.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
I think that's good.
Okay, Andrea, is that okay with you?
That works for me.
All right, Patrick?
Would this be something that we should probably vote on with the rest of the board? I know there's some individuals that aren't here with this committee, or is it normal practice for us to vote on these and then bring it to the board for final approval? Is that the game plan for this?
You know, this is not normal. So normally you wouldn't vote on this because the state law dictates how it's done.
Yeah.
So this is unusual. I think my recommendation, Patrick, would be for the Finance Committee to vote on a recommendation and then to send that recommendation to the full board for a vote.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Okay.
So was it just to be clear, Patrick, you wanted to make sure we weren't making the decision without the full board, correct?
Yeah, I'd just like to have the rest of the board members be part of the decision-making process on this. I'm also a visual person, so if I can get a copy of that email, I'd be able to.
I've just forwarded it to all of you, so you should have it in your inbox.
Thank you.
And absolutely, we let the full board, the whole board support.
Okay, I misunderstood a segment of that, so.
I just wanted to make sure I was understanding your question, so that's fine. Okay.
Okay, great. Any other questions on that? Then the final item on the agenda is specific for the Finance Committee. So I would ask Finance Committee members if you're okay in allowing administrators to sign off, except for maybe Chad. I'd like Chad to remain, but all of the others to sign off. That would be great. It's been a long day for them, and I'm sure that they would like to enjoy the rest of their evening.
It's fine with me.
Okay, so no objections? Okay, so if everyone, good night, folks. Thanks for coming. We'll talk
Thank you so
soon.
much for being here tonight. Be well.
Thank you.
I assume you want me to stick around?
Yes, please. Sorry, yeah,
Always.
you don't get off that easy, Andrea. So the last question, the last item actually has to do with donation for athletic game broadcast. So I'm not sure if you guys are aware, Munzing Media this year has donated all of their time to broadcast many of our athletic events. And as a result, our families, our parents, have been able to watch their children play since they weren't allowed to be in the building, or in the fall, they weren't even really allowed to be outside on the field, like by the football field. So we've been so grateful and appreciative of Munzing Media. So there's been a request that someone would like us to make a donation, just kind of in recognition of their time, a $5,000 donation to help cover some of their costs, that it could come out of our athletic budget. It is my understanding that Munzing Media, they're doing the same for other school districts, but they're charging other school districts. You know, they're not charging us because they're Gardner boys, but they are charging, I think the $5,000 that they're charging us is less than what they're charging other school districts for just one sport. I believe I have that right, Chad. And so I promised to bring the idea to the Finance Committee to get your consideration of whether we could, again, take some money out of our athletic budget. There have been savings as a result of some of the reduction in the playtime for kids, to just kind of give them that donation as a way of appreciating all that they've done to support our athletic teams over the course of this year. Thoughts?
I think it's agreeable. Yeah, makes sense to me. If you feel that's fair, you know, yeah.
I think we're fortunate to have Rob Munzing in our district, and that he's done all of this for us for free this year is fantastic.
It really is.
It's really great. And we haven't been spending money on athletics much, so much if any.
Right.
It's there.
Jim?
Yeah, I think it's reasonable. I think we should probably go ahead with it. It's an expensive proposition what they've done for us, and I don't think this is actually making them whole. But if this helps, I think it's a good idea, and they've been very, very helpful.
Yeah, Colin.
Just a question about using the word donation. I mean, are they a charitable organization? Are we actually able to donate money, or is this a payment?
It would be a payment. Thank you for that. And as a nonprofit ourselves, we should not be making a donation to another entity. It would be payment. And Jim is correct. It would not cover all of their costs, $5,000 payment. It would just be a, I guess, recognition of all of the time that they've given to us without charge.
Sorry to ask, have they taken any tax write-offs for the service provided to the district?
I have no idea.
Okay, but they haven't submitted any kind of gift in kind. Okay.
No.
Sorry to be that guy. Just double dipping.
No, that's okay. It's a good question. But no, not that I'm aware of. All right, Colin, another question?
Oh.
No? Okay.
Nope, wrong button.
All right. So if you are all in favor, I actually would like to have a motion. I would like to have a motion made. I don't want this to be an administrative decision. I would like to have this be a board decision.
So I can make a motion that we make a payment to Munzing Media in lieu of them charging us for their broadcasting of sporting events.
I'll second
I
that.
second that.
Okay, I heard Patrick first. I had thrown out $5,000. Is that included in, Alyssa, your motion?
Yes, 5,000 is recommended by Pat. Thank you.
All right, and Patrick, you support the 5,000? Okay, great. Questions? All right, if not, then I need to do the roll call.
Yes, please.
All right, so Becky Fless,
Yay.
Nicole Madore,
Yay.
Alyssa Tracy,
Yay.
Jim Lothridge,
Yay.
Patrick Saucier,
Yay.
and Colin McGuff.
Yay.
Great, it's unanimous, folks. Thank you. And that is all we have tonight for finance. I don't yet have another date for our next meeting. I would like to hold off scheduling it until such time when we have more information about health insurance, maybe more information about ESSER money, more information about IDEA, so that we have really a better sense of what that bottom line is going to look like. Jim?
Do you think you might be able to get us some feedback from the modular folks as to what kind of a time frame we are looking at for delivery? That would be
I will
helpful.
ask Gabe. Yes, I will ask Gabe to try to find that out. In the meantime, since you had no objections to the projects I identified in ESER 2, my plan is to have that application submitted this week to the Department of Education. Nicole, I'm not certain if you know how quickly they're turning those applications around at this point. Do you have any sense?
I haven't heard anything about those ones, no.
Okay, my hope is that they will be able to turn it around fairly quickly. And so hopefully we will know as early as next week as to whether those projects are approved. And as soon as I have that approval from the department, then I'm willing to sign my name to a contract. But I'm not willing to sign my name to a contract until I know the department will approve the project.
Yeah.
I wasn't suggesting you sign the contract. I just want to know if there's any feedback from them,
Yeah.
just to give us an idea as what we could expect. That was all.
Yeah, I will check with Gabe and have Gabe call this week. The person that he speaks with is sometimes really difficult to get hold of at Schiavi. So I will ask him to reach out and try to find out what the projected timeline is right now. So, okay. Awesome, everyone. Well, this is all we have, and we'll be back in touch. Jim, I did send those attachments to you. You should have an email with those, okay?
Thank you very much.
You are welcome. All right, folks. Thank you so much.
See y'all later.
And
Thank you.
we will see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.